Hey, welcome back to another jog video, everybody. In this one, we're going to do reaction content. Jubilee has this video, Would America Be Better Under Communism? That was released 5 months ago. Damn, during the genocide. That's kind of cringe. Anyways, and so Midwestern Marks is in here. Maybe some of you know who that is. And I've already seen this once, I think. Yeah, once on watching it with Hasanabi's stream, which is how I first came across it. I wanted to do this because I kind of wanted to give my own input and my own insight on, give my own takes, because I realized that there are some things I agreed with Hassan on, there are a lot of stuff that I disagree with him on, and I think it's just better if I do this myself and have my own takes and stuff. So what I'm going to do is talk, we'll watch parts of the video in between and stuff like that, and we'll go from there. We'll test it out as we go. I'll probably break this up into a few parts, and so yeah, let's give it a go, right?
You cannot say
Hannah, I don't want to argue.
You do want to argue. You wanted to make your point, so let me make it back.
Hannah,
and then you're going to try to say it's too spicy for me. No, I got you. Let me respond to you. It is not capitalism coming in and enshrining enslavement. And in fact, capitalism is what got rid of it and started pushing back against this centuries-old awful institution. So to say it's capitalism, I think is honestly offensive. We are
All right. Wow. Right off the bat, we have a lot to unpack here. So, couple things. First thing I want to point out is the whole no, I got you thing she's got going on, right? There's very much a personal stake in this. Obviously, it's a discussion. But it's just kind of funny how, you'll see this in the video, how consistently and well-meaning, us all leftists really are, but especially the people in this video, and how just deeply insecure and uncertain, and also very entitled and smug and self-assured that the capitalist supporters are. And also, saying, I think Hassan brought this up in his reaction thing. It's pretty funny when conservatives wield identitarian politics in poll against leftists, because they reject it, and then when it's finally time to, when it happens to them, they start complaining that that's offensive, that it's offensive. Imagine if, as a communist, I was any time that, somebody said something bad about communists, I was I'm, offended about blah, blah, blah. There's such a level of privilege about it that is not aware to this woman, Hannah, I think her name is. And so, there's, yeah. This isn't just about, the ideas, that people have. It is a lot about that, but it's not just about that. It's also about what these ideas and how we hold them and what they impact us with. How do they make us look? How do they actually make us behave? And I think you'll find that people that tend to be on more regressive, reactionary sides of things are just not not always your favorite kind of people to be around. So I guess we'll continue from that kind of small little thing.
50th episode of Middle Ground, and we need your help to continue making more episodes. Join our Middle Ground Patreon community and help us write the future of Middle Ground.
America would be a more powerful country under communism.
May they agree or step forward.
Okay, so let's start with this poll right here, because I think, oh man, there's just this is so, only 11% of at least Middle Ground survey respondents said they would agree to communism. Now, what's interesting about this is Gen Z, especially millennials as well, but Gen Z especially, are the most open to socialism they have ever been. It's upwards of 60% and stuff, right? So I think this, I could be oh, they didn't take the poll sample size, right? Which could be true, but it's probably more so just indicative of the Red Scare propaganda that's in America. And, people really think that communism is when no food, communism is when Stalin big spoon, communism is a poverty cult. They'll say all kinds of stuff like this in the video, the capitalists will. But I think this just kind of goes to show that, like, it doesn't, I mean, it does matter what people think of things, obviously, right? But, like, if Americans don't have an accurate understanding of what communism is, then what's the point of them saying yes or no to it? You know, I mean, if you, this is just kind of an issue with polls and stuff like that. And to be honest, it's an issue like everywhere. Like, Western civilization is very, very sloppy and messy and inconsistent and not thorough. And you'll see that in like every single intellectual facet that we have. It's just not, there's like a vapidity, a vapidness, an emptiness to so much of the scrutiny and integrity of our institutions, our tools, our surveys, science, blah, 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 blah. It's just weak. And I think this is another example of it, right? Because, you know, we're not really getting to the bottom of, like, it's a simple question. They had to make the content, blah, blah, blah. And it's all just products of capitalist society, really. And yeah, I guess that's kind of, that's enough for now.
I think it would be a lot better for all the people who are working jobs that are not, I guess, tech, basically. So I make content, which means that I work a lot of hours and I don't get paid the same amount as a soft dev. So I think it would create more creativity in certain like creative industries, artists. If you make a bigger pie, everyone gets a bigger slice.
Yeah. I think one of the main misconceptions about communism is that it's just making everybody equally poor. When Marx and Engels wrote repeatedly that the first step under communism is increasing the productive forces. In the US, over 80% of our population is living paycheck to paycheck. If you provide people's basic needs, if you invest in economic growth and in jobs and in infrastructure rather than investing in endless war and massacring Muslim people in Gaza, you're going to make this country a lot stronger. You're going to make the people a lot more stable here.
I grew up in a white ring area. I grew up in Denver, Colorado. I was born in Dallas, Texas. I'm the first American in my family. Everybody's from the Congo. If my family was able to come here, of course, it would have some capitalist connection. So I grew up very much with the idea that everything I need is under capitalism. Individualism, freedom, all these things are under capitalism. But I'm black in America. So those contradictions really just create that friction where I'm like, this doesn't align with what I was told and what I'm actually seeing or actually feeling. So why did I come to communism? When I actually read it, when I went from Marx to Lenin to Mao to Deng to Fred Hampton, I started realizing like, oh, this is patriotism. This is the idea that I look at another American and think to myself, I want you to be fed. I want you to feel fulfilled in your life. I want you to feel like you actually have control within your society. Honestly, as somebody, again, who grew up in that right-wing area, that flies over everybody's heads.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I mean, we have a great start here. This woman, Bunny, I think her name is, she brings up a great analogy with how when the pie is bigger, everybody has a bigger slice, right? That's so succinct, works so well. Midwestern Marx, Eddie, you know, he also brings up the good point about how you have to develop the productive forces under capitalism, right? And how you can't move into communism without that development. Now, when we talk about how the productive forces have developed under capitalism, we need to note that in America specifically, while the productive forces have absolutely developed, there's also been a lot of deindustrialization. You know, a lot of jobs have moved overseas. A lot of jobs have moved into like these, you know, effectively useless positions of call centers and secretary work. And not that that stuff isn't important, but we have the technology to automate so much, to rise, to innovate, to progress, that we have a whole litany of jobs that exist very regressively. It's just, I mean, if you're in America right now and you're American, I would be surprised if you disagreed that like there is very much like a chasm of technological advancement in the United States where like, you know, the flashiest new things come out as like commodities for people to consume. But when it comes to the systemic adjustments, I mean, it's a complete, you know, shit show in every way. And you can really see that with how America has deindustrialized, you know, as capitalism really deteriorates into its final stages. You know, there's an aspect of where it made more sense for American Western capitalists to export jobs in certain ways with whatever it was. NAFTA is a good example. Bringing jobs to China when they opened up foreign investment. That's another example. This was all within their profit motive. It helped them make more money because they could pay less to cheaper laborers rather than the labor aristocracy in America. And so you kind of see that development with just how little America really makes its own stuff, uses its own raw materials. I mean, even our agriculture here is very like bandage like, it's very like, Christ, when you really look at the minutia of how our system works in America, it's deeply unsustainable, and it's constantly collapsing and barely sustaining upon itself. And that's, so obviously apparent in this. So when we talk about, Midwestern Marx Eddie brings up a good point, how capitalism develops the productive forces. But it's important to keep in mind that capitalism can also regress productive forces just as much as any mode of production can. But the reason that it would happen in capitalism is because it has a profit motive. It has the profit incentive. It'll make the capitalist more money to basically exist in a deindustrial way. In a consumer worker type of way, right? Office jobs, right? Like suit and tie type stuff. Stocks, hedge funds, right? Lots of PMC, professional managerial class jobs. Of course, there are still like industrial jobs, like normal labor jobs. People who are doing the real, quote unquote skilled labor or essential workers, right? Whatever the new term is these days. That stuff all still exists, but it's irrefutable that there is like an unbelievable level of jobs that have gone overseas because it's frankly more profitable for the capitalists. And so that's just kind of a little piece I wanted to add, that it is technically within the context of, whatever specific nation it is, but everybody's killing it so far. And Malumbo as well. I think you say his name Malumbo. I'm sorry, dude. Like, I'm so fucking white. So if I'm saying anybody's name wrong or whatever, my bad. So Malumbo, I'll call him Mole maybe. I really like when people do his tactic, because they remove like the debate bro aspect, they remove like the intellectual head-to-head thing, like, and he just brings it down right to like, I'm a first American in my family's from the Congo, and the Congo, I think he even brings up in this video, the Congo is probably like one of the most effed over African countries, and that says a lot for the continent of Africa, because like Africa, nobody leaves Africa alone for hundreds of years. Like, it's been constantly under all kinds of BS for hundreds of years now, and Congo is probably literally probably the worst. Like, they've got it the worst. So I wonder how much that'll come into play here. I'm sure it will. And so he also brings up how being black in America, you're just straight, and that's such a good point, right? Where it's like all of this idealism about capitalism, all of this stuff that it sells you, right? He brings up, right? You can literally just live here as like a black man in America, for example. And I'm a white person, so I wouldn't understand the experience, but it's like, I've been doing this long enough that it's like everybody has all these different things that like are going on in their lives that are a problem from the systems that we have. And, black Americans probably suffer from this some of the most, if not the most, in America. And so, you have what is essentially, right, like this revelation that capitalism is extremely phony, and that, you're looking for real human values, right? They bring up how real patriotism is making sure that people are fed, right? The definitions that, Mao and people like him used, Mao Zedong. So, yeah, look, I just got to say, because I think there's another one where it's like socialists and capitalists. I'll have to do that one eventually, where it's a little weaker. It's a lot weaker. But, this is the first question right off the bat. It's just top tier stuff. You love to see it.
Disagreeers are walking quick on this one. Can I say something first on this one?
Okay, how I forgot to mention this is beyond me. Sorry about this. So yeah, Ty Lopez is in this video. Cars in My Garage guy, if you remember all that from, God, that must have been so long ago now. I read a book. This guy is the grifter of grifters, right? Bringing Ty Lopez on is almost a reason that you should not support capitalism. Because this man is as grifter, as shallow, and as empty. And you'll see in the video that the two other pro-capitalist individuals have much stronger arguments than Ty Lopez does. So yeah, that's Ty Lopez here. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but we're in for a ride now, aren't we?
Want to be so bold. Here's my argument. How come every communistic country has to build a wall or a fence to keep people in? China ain't letting people out. My grandma, I remember going, my grandma. Yeah, but where did?
Yeah, there you go. He literally, like, Ty Lopez immediately starts off, and it's already just the weakest point, and it's like, dude, Trump, like, what are you talking about? And So we're gonna have to tolerate. I think Ty Lopez represents like what happens when you give free speech to people who, maybe they shouldn't be using it so irresponsibly. Maybe they shouldn't be using their value of free speech so liberally. Maybe they should be a little more conservative with their word choices. But yeah, this is just. I'll continue.
Yeah, but where did you come? But where did you come? There's not a mass immigration into Venezuela, into China, into Russia. Where do people want to go? Switzerland, America, Sweden. They're all talking about we need to build a wall because people are coming. China's not going, well, we better build a wall because all those Americans are coming across. Nobody's going there.
It's almost like low-hanging fruit, to be honest. I mean, Christ, I don't even, yeah, so there's just so many ways that this is right. Like, if he really wanted to make a strong argument, the typical, argument people use, propaganda argument, but nonetheless somewhat strong, is the Great Firewall, which is like this, China very much has like their entire internet under state control. Everything's highly regulated. Like they don't have a lot of what Western websites have. And the reason for that is because they understand that capital, the Communist Party of China understands that capital has strong market influence. And so the demands of whatever profit are will heavily manipulate whatever's going on developmentally within specifically the online sphere within China. And that would have been a way stronger argument because, first of all, China literally has the Great Wall of China. China literally historically, even before communism, 1,000 years ago, whenever the Great Wall was built, like a long ass time ago, man, like they literally had to build a wall from invaders. So that, there's that. And considering it's one of the oldest civilizations on Earth and now has over 1 billion people, I'd say it's definitely a hotspot, absolutely. And in addition, there are definitely people that are going to places like China as well. So, especially nowadays as it gets more and more popular and the Chinese government has actually surpassed the United States government, like irrefutably at this point. And so, you'll see, it's so funny because there are all different kinds of, people that are leaving America and going to China. And what also Ty Lopez forgets is that just because people are moving to Western countries, right, his example is given, doesn't mean it's actually better there. It's just where capital is dominated. It's just where capital is centralized. It's the imperial core. Moving to the capital from District 12 and Hunger Games and being like, oh, dude, this is... what was I ever complaining about? Like, everything's fine now. It's like, no, man. Like, that's the whole problem with capitalism is that it requires a bunch of people to be screwed over so a couple people can be great off. And that's the problem with it. It's not that it's unsuccessful. It's not that it has all this like utility or benefits to it. It's that it's in the long run not effing worth it, man.